This may be the most exciting version of Meet the Solutionaries yet. Why is that? I am so proud to introduce Cousteau's. Anyone who knows that name knows what that means. It's synonymous with ocean exploration and diving and the marine world. And it's such an honor to introduce our viewers to Philippe Cousteau Jr. and his lovely wife, Ashlyn. And they are going to be hosting a big event on Friday, the International Ocean Film Festival. Looking forward to attending that. And that's all about showcasing the best films out there, talking about the threats to our ocean. And that's such an important area that doesn't get still enough coverage, enough focus, but so much of our CO2, our greenhouse gases, is being absorbed by our ocean. And just like Al Gore says, the atmosphere is not a sewer, shouldn't be, but it's become that. The ocean, certainly not. So I just want to give a couple of points. Not only are you ocean explorers, adventurers, but you have really strong media backgrounds too. And I'm so glad that you have been doing media. I remember seeing some of your shows, one including on CNN, that should still be on. Welcome to greentv.com. Cousteau, I mean, my goodness, you grew up with this. I did not realize that your father passed away before you were born. Is that correct? Not to start on a sad note, but I had no idea. I'm so sorry.
Well, I appreciate that. My father, Philippe Sr., was the younger son of my grandfather, Jacques, and his right hand in so many of the films and documentaries through the 60s and 70s. He actually produced, directed, and filmed 28 of the episodes of the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, and his own series of Oasis in Space, and was really a leader at the time. But yeah, he had an airplane accident, landing gear malfunctioned when the seaplane that they used, and they called it Flying Calypso, was landing on the Tagus River in Lisbon, Portugal, and the whole plane flipped in the water, and my father was killed about 6 months before I was born. But
So sad.
He left an amazing legacy, as did my grandfather, and it's inspired me, my whole life.
So tell us, on a scale of 1 to 10, like I said, I'm just going to jump right in. How concerned are you about the future of our oceans?
10.
I'm gonna go Spinal Tap and say 11.
Yeah.
I agree completely. What are the biggest threats right now to ocean health?
I think one of the biggest threats to our ocean is that people just, well, number one, they take it for granted, but it's just because they don't understand just how important our ocean is. I think ocean literacy, not only in the United States, but across the globe is horrible. Even in high school, I took AP biology, and it wasn't until I wrote Oceans for Dummies that I really started truly understanding, just how important our ocean is. And whenever we talk about climate change, we must talk about our ocean, because it's our ocean that controls our climate and our weather. And most people,
all connected. It's all connected, right?
I agree. And that's the biggest threat. We just don't connect the dots.
Is it partly because we can't see what's going on below the surface? Not that we can see the carbon in the atmosphere with our eyes, but
part of it.
I would say that, Betsy. And I would also say that, people that think, or people that don't live on the coast, sometimes are like, oh, well, the ocean doesn't affect me. But truly the ocean does, if you like to drink clean water and breathe air, breathe oxygen. So, I think for us, we always try to remind people of that the ocean is vital to every single, not human, but every single species on this planet. And if we don't take care of our ocean, then, and also our ocean is our biggest ally. Another thing to remember, it's not just we need to make sure the ocean doesn't die. We need to make sure the ocean is healthy, because that's what is going to help us the most keep our entire planet healthy.
Yeah, you think about, I think people are very direct causal relationship. It's hard, as actually people don't live on the coast, hard to connect the dots. And we're a terrestrial species, a vain terrestrial species. And I think oftentimes we just assume that the solutions are land-based because we're land-based. And that is very frustrating that we still see a deficit of ocean discussions at big global conferences like the COPs that are out there. It's beginning to change, but it's 2023, for goodness sakes. And we're only beginning. Life below water is an SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 14. And yet nothing else works without a working system and a working ocean. So it should be one.
Doesn't the ocean have something to do with the air we breathe?
From the oxygen we breathe to the climate and the rainfall of our crops, all of it is driven by the ocean.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
like to joke because I like to sometimes say things that get people to sit up and take note. So my whole thing is we always talk about trees, but screw trees. I mean, I love trees, but screw trees. They are not our oxygen provider. I mean, the Amazon is incredible, and it is the lungs of our terrestrial planet, but is the ocean, and it is algae, and in the Southern Ocean, truly, that is really producing most of the air that we breathe. So people really need to think, yes, the oxygen. We love trees. I'm just kidding. I love trees, but when we're talking about the health and we're talking about oxygen, we need to talk about the ocean.
Well, and when we think about, to put it in economic terms, what's your biggest ROI? Is it planting trees? No. Is it planting mangroves? Is it restoring seagrass beds? Yes. A square acre of mangrove can absorb 3 to 4 times more carbon than a square acre of terrestrial rainforest. And so, our focus has been on these terrestrial solutions that are important, but misses the mark if we're looking for the best bang for the buck. And the most important systems to invest in, as Ashley mentioned, down in the Southern Ocean and Antarctica, we most people have no idea that is the most important ocean on Earth, that there's ecosystems there, krill systems, for example, that sequester billions of tons of carbon in the ocean. And that if we don't protect those, then so many of the other efforts we're making are useless.
There's a lot of attention on plastic pollution in the ocean. For some reason, that problem is taken off. How big a problem is that? And compare that or add on to that the overfishing challenge, and also, of course, the acidification, the warming of the oceans. Where do you rank those? Are they all connected and no one is more important than the other?
Well, I would say I'm glad that plastic pollution gets as much attention as it does. But number one, that's why Philippe and I don't. Well, Philippe doesn't eat fish. He doesn't like it, and they're his friends. I don't eat fish because it's, really it's full of toxins and microplastics these days. I would say for us, the collapse of the global fish stocks is terrifying. Not necessarily for us personally, since we don't eat fish, but for the billions of people that rely on that as their only source of protein around the world. That is terrifying. And again, fish are part of this healthy ecosystem that is part of an entire ocean. So if we do, 90% of our fish stocks are either overfished or fished at capacity. That's the scientists.
I have to wonder, will there be
best data
that we have right now?
And so I think if I had to rank them, I would say climate and warming oceans affects everything, right? I think I would put that at the top of the pyramid. Plastics is part of a bigger problem. Plastic gets a lot of attention, but sometimes overshadows some of the other pollution issues around like nitrogen, for example, and runoff and agricultural runoff and waste that is causing dead zones and having huge impact on the health of the ocean. But plastic, I think, scares people, particularly because it's visible, it's insidious, and it's permanent by our standards. Ashley and I were filming a show for Discovery a few years ago in the Marshall Islands. And I remember we'd go into these, these not even deserted, no one had ever been to these islands. And you'd be wading through plastic waste up to your waist on these beaches.
From all over the world.
From all over the, crazy. So it's a huge problem. I'd put it in the top 3. I don't know if I'd put it at number 1.
And what about the fossil fuel industry anticipating, well, of course, there's pressure now growing finally loudly to phase out fossil fuels, but now they're saying, okay, plastic is the future. And so it's made from petroleum, obviously.
Well, exactly. Another use of oil, which is daunting and scary, not surprising. But on the flip side, there's a lot of innovation going into plastic replacements. Like plastic doesn't need to be made from petroleum. Seaweed, for example, seaweed can save the world. Is very exciting in the new innovations that are happening there.
And there's a certain place for plastic. Like I always learned, there are certain places for plastic in medical equipment, and there are certain places for plastic, but in our laziness as a species, getting a plastic bag, using it for less than 3 minutes, and it sticks around for billions of years, that is ridiculous. And we also, I know there's so many consumers that are really doing the right thing. They're saying no to straws, they're saying no to single-use plastic, and that's great. But we also need to take it up the level and really look at the shipping, at fashion, at films, the wrappings, and I mean that's where the big changes needs to happen is we need to get these big corporations to invest and change into these other solutions.
Yeah, I've seen the pallets of like, paper straws and, plastic replacements wrapped in like an inch thick of plastic film as it's being shipped across the country. And you're like missing the point here. My friend Bill McDonough, this extraordinary architect and visionary,
I've interviewed him many years ago.
He's got a great phrase where he's like, there's no such thing as bad plastic or bad carbon, because it's like fugitive plastic, carbon and plastic in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's really what it is. And so using it for the wrong uses, as Asha said, plastic in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's an extraordinary thing. It's just, unfortunately, in the wrong place at the wrong time, like the ocean.
How about
places at the wrong time?
how about plastic packaging? You can't even cut with the scissors to get some tiny object out that you really didn't even need. Oh my gosh. And one last example, because it just happened. I flew into San Francisco. My husband picked me up at the airport and he had some coconut water in the car waiting for me. It was that really yummy, expensive brand, Harmless Harvest, which tastes like pure coconut water. And I was enjoying it, but it was a small bottle. And I swear I had like 5 sips and it was done. And I'm holding this bottle in my hand, Harmless Harvest. Well, how harmless is
And it's plastic. We stopped buying it because
this is the good stuff. This is the
harmless. We love it. It's so good, but we don't buy it because it's in the plastic bottles. And I'm like, guys, get this together. There's a couple new brands that we were using that are coming cans, things, cart. So yeah, it's really frustrating when you think about not connecting the dots. And yet I understand, we are launching a wellness brand coming up here, and the packaging is really important for us and hard to find, non-plastic packaging. We use glass and bamboo. And it's a couple cents more expensive to do that. And so, but I understand that the economics behind, maybe it's a couple cents, 2 or 3 cents more expensive to use glass, or 4 cents or 5 cents. But if you're making a couple million or tens of millions of products, that adds up. And so, I do understand also that there's this insidious kind of economic system out there that exists that is contrary to what we should be doing. Like, it's disincentivizing good behavior, incentivizing bad behavior economically. That's another big problem that we need to solve for. Either whatever regulatory involvement needs to happen, because you have a new startup brand like ours, and you're looking at the economics, and we said this is a red line for us. But a lot of companies I can see like, well, we can save $10,000 by using a plastic thing. We're going to do that because that makes that puts money in people's pockets and creates jobs and all that stuff. I get it. So it's a complex problem.
Yeah, I want to ask you about a couple of really scary news items recently. One was this massive fish die-off. I believe it was in a river. Can't remember exactly where in this country. I couldn't look at it. It was literally physically making me nauseous. But as far as the eye could see, it was dead fish, like a whole carpet, like no space between the fish, just like long view. And that's, they believe, from agricultural runoff, chemicals, pesticides. And the other is this giant blob of seaweed heading to Florida. What is that, pray tell?
I used to live in Florida. Florida breaks my heart for many reasons. The longest intercoastal lagoon in the country is St. Lucie. Not St. Lucie, that's a river. The intercoastal lagoon that runs along the East Coast, the Everglades, the Florida Keys. Everglades is the largest ecosystem of its kind. Florida Keys, third longest barrier reef in the world, and like Florida has systematically.
You glossed over that. The third largest coral reef in the world was the Florida Keys.
And
I didn't know that.
Like, Florida has systematically destroyed all of those systems over the last 50, 60, 75 years.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in Florida. I love Florida. Maybe the Sargasso is a little bit of like karma. Sargasso is a normal system that exists and is important, but it's blooming because of all the nitrogen. And Florida has been dumping nitrogen and waste and phosphorus and agriculture, destroying these ecosystems into the ocean for decades and decades and decades. Now the red tides and the Sargasso tides is payback. We all have to pay for our bills eventually, and I think it's terrible, and it's a lot of people are going to suffer. Throughout the Caribbean, Venezuela, islands, places are having real problems with Sargasso, but as a direct result of warming ocean and of nutrients being green in the water, and frankly, like we reap what we sow.
And here's what's sad about climate change too, is it affects everybody, not just the bad players. And that's what's so sad, because Philippe and I sometimes will lament, we'll be like, can't we just go on an island with our children and our friends who do good things and don't hurt the environment? But you can't, because no matter where you are, the bad thing, the inaction or bad actions of some people will affect everyone.
I know
It's coming for all of us.
It is. It is.
I noticed that when red algae got bad in Florida, I think Governor DeSantis started getting concerned because it was affecting tourism.
Yes.
The state's bottom line.
Yep.
That's what it takes, right?
As well, it's all about money, right?
Yeah.
And it should. Unfortunately, particularly during this election, he said a lot of really good things. I think there's been pretty poor follow up on that, which is a shame.
And it's not just tourism too. It's the small farm, fishermen and fisherwomen. It's the small little family farms that are going to either go through extreme drought or extreme, rain. It's all these small businesses too that are really going to be affected in the state. It's not good.
And apparently, it's costing millions to clean this. What do you call it? Sargassum.
Sargasso,
it's a type of
like sulfur, apparently.
Yeah, it's a type of seaweed. Because the one thing that's super interesting about the Sargassum Sea is the only sea that doesn't have a border. It's actually I don't even know how to explain it, but because of the currents, it all kind of sits together, and it's an amazing place where many, many, many sea creatures in the entire world will go there while they're juveniles to grow up. So a lot of sea turtles, a lot of fish and things like that. And then once they're bigger and won't be as easily eaten, then they go back to their normal areas. But it is an incredible ecosystem that's important to our ocean. But again, as soon as we mess up the ocean, it's affecting these currents, it's affecting the weather, it's affecting all of this. And then you end up with hundreds of thousands of tons, I think.
Oh, I think millions of tons, millions
washing up on the beach. Smells, it smothers everything that's there. And I mean, it's going to be a massive problem.
And all the marine life that was in there thriving, and now all of a sudden it's on the beach, not so much.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we keep our hope up? How do we get motivated to do something, everything? And what do you recommend people who are watching this and are getting sick to their stomach do?
It's a great question. Because we were talking earlier, there's a lot of frustration out there. I was watching not too long ago an old interview my grandfather did probably 50 years ago for a morning show, talking about the ocean and its central role in regulating our climate and how it works, right? It's a thermodynamic system. The ocean takes warm water from the tropics and moves it to the poles where it takes cold water, and it makes everything just more temperate and stable than the wild fluctuations that we're seeing now.
It's
this
the
50 years ago.
air conditioning unit of our planet is the ocean. And
Ashton and I know you have many times as well, were explaining the same thing in an interview not long ago. Here's how the ocean works, and it affects our climate. And you think 50 years has gone by, and what have we learned? Not a lot. And yet, when you walk into a classroom anywhere in the world through the work we do with the nonprofit I founded almost 20 years ago, Earth Echo International, we're a leading global youth leadership and environmental and ocean education organization, and we worked with over 2 million youth in 146 countries. And you walk into a classroom anywhere, from Brazil to Saudi Arabia to Florida to France, China, wherever, kids are fired up. They care. They understand what's going on. This is a critical issue for them, and it's starting to make it that phenomena and that generation is starting to make itself and its impact felt. One great example is the last presidential election here in the U.S. There was a really interesting study that had been done right before that looked at the states in which young people had the most potential to affect the presidential election. And it was states like Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, we're all in the top 5. And what ended up happening, Biden administration made climate change one of its central pillars, and it motivated record numbers of young people to turn out in those states. And that flipped, or I wouldn't say flipped, but that swayed the election in the favor of the Democrats and President Biden. And I think that it demonstrates that we have a new generation of people that are flexing political and economic muscle. They care about these issues more than any other, maybe along with social justice. And that's exciting to me. And I think,
and also too, there was a poll with young Republicans.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Climate change was one of their top 3 issues.
Yeah.
And so we have to get away from our parents' generation where this is a party issue. This is not a party issue. Everyone is affected by climate change. Everyone should have clean air and clean water and healthy food to eat. And remember, it was Richard Nixon that did a lot of good work for the environment. He established the EPA. He did the Clean Air, Clean Water Act. He did the Marine Mammal Care Act, out of all things.
Oh,
So,
I got it now.
so we must get away from this Reagan era idea
That's when it started. Yeah.
that it's only Democrats that should care. Like we all care about it. And this we shouldn't make this a reason, we shouldn't make this a political issue.
It's not political, it's physics, and one party
Right.
in particular hijacked
common
that. That's
sense.
cost decades. Because that's part of the reason the mainstream media, television news networks, radio networks stayed away from it, because they felt it was too political. So that they won, the bad guys won in that sense.
Yep.
And we lost
They did.
20 years, 2 critical decades because of that.
Good point, Betsy.
Yeah. Well, we've all been involved with plenty and are involved with plenty of folks in the mainstream media. I don't hold many of them in very high esteem, I will say that.
Well, and I will also say, this is coming from someone who started on the opposite end of journalism than you, Betsy. I started in entertainment and in pop culture. And for me, I'm also always reminded that some people might not sit down and watch an earnest documentary because maybe they don't like Al Gore or they don't like Leonardo DiCaprio, but they'll sit down and watch something that's exciting, entertaining. So that's another reason why we are so excited, because as we're looking at many of these young filmmakers, they're truly diversifying the type of content that's out there. And, who's actually moved by like something that's really scary? I mean, we're all frozen in fear for a little bit, and then we put it in that little box in the back of our head and move on, because that's how we have to deal with it. But if we approach these stories in a great way, and they can be serious and they can be earnest, and that can be fun and exciting and full of adventure, and really try to make content that hits all of those buckets. That I think is truly also how we bring more people into the space of caring about the environment.
So I had an eco epiphany just in the last month. I've been at this many years. I was at 2 back-to-back conferences. One was the Aspen Ideas Climate Festival, climate conference held in Miami, appropriately, ground zero for sea level rise. And it expanded so much just from the first year. I wasn't there last year, but I heard it went from like 1,800 participants to 2,300, and I'm sure next year will explode even more. Fascinating presentations, of course, and Kamala Harris was there. She was interviewed by Gloria Estefan. So they had some big names, and the chief climate guy under Biden's administration, I can't recall his name now. So it was very high powered, really. And then I went right from that to South by Southwest. And I moved to Austin 5 years ago. And that was my first time there officially with a ticket and all that. And it was a huge part of the presentations. I mean, the climate track was much bigger than it's ever been. But here's my epiphany. I've probably been to, I figured, about 10 conferences a year over 25 years, from zero waste to zero emissions. 100% of the time, guess what there is in common? Guess what the common denominator is? These people there are the most positive, upbeat, excited, purpose-driven, plugged in folks I know. And you walk around in the world and everyone is glum not everyone, a lot of people who are tuned into what's going on. And there's a lot of reasons besides just environmental ecosystem collapse, but that's a big part of it. And it's like, I want people to know that if you join us, you can immediately become part of the solution. And it's remarkable because the impression or the myth is that environmentalists, climate activists are about gloom and doom, they're negative, and it's au contraire. And that's another one of those things that has, gotten
It's, you're right, Betsy, and it's I think in many ways, environmentalists have themselves to blame for that because it has been, doom and gloom for so long. And there's a reason for that. Negativity and doom and gloom is a short-term motivator psychologically. And it gets people to be afraid and write a check or make a donation, which has been the bread and butter of the environmental movement for a long time, like individuals. So there's like a very basic reason why that has, I think, unfortunately been kind of the trend. But you're right, there's a new approach, which is, listen, we have some very real problems. There's going to be a lot of collateral damage. We were talking earlier, in the last 40 years or so in our lifetime, 50% of the world's biodiversity is gone. That's gone. It's not coming back. So a horrible tragedy there. However, there's a lot of good news, a lot of innovation happening out there, new industries, new markets, new products, and a new crop of politicians that are coming up on both sides of the aisle that are saying, okay, this is not a negotiable issue, clean air and clean water. So there's a lot of good news out there. I always tell people, just stop at the doom scrolling and recognize that there are wonderful, powerful, positive, hopeful communities of people doing really extraordinary things. And that's, again, the young people that we see that keep us going every day.
Yeah, and I mean, again, sometimes I think for individuals, it's so hard to feel like you have power. You feel powerless. I mean, you recycle and you compost and you put your trash can at the edge of your driveway and you look down your street and it's just all not, your neighbors are not doing the same thing. But what's really exciting is people just always have to remember that truly the power of the individual is a lot. And it's not just who you vote for. That is very important. Make sure you're voting for people that are putting the environment, top front and center. But also it's how you spend your money. And it's not just buying, aluminum bottled water that's in an aluminum bottle versus plastic, but also think of the big corporations. I mean, especially when it comes to fashion, these big companies, if you don't like the way that they're doing things and you choose not to spend your money with them, they take notice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people sometimes forget is the power the individual has over the large, big corporations. And that's what's important. I mean, here in California, we've been driving an electric car for, 12 years. But I mean, California just put their foot down and now all the other states are following suit. And that's only because I think, consumers and the people of California were demanding that because our air quality sucked and kids were getting asthma and you couldn't see the Hollywood Hills and we live like a quarter mile away from them. So I think that make your voice heard, make your voice heard. And
shopping is politics. I think it was Bono who said
shopping is politics.
And from the products we buy, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, it's like, yeah, it's a lot more than like saying no to straws and not getting plastic bottles.
Right.
And people need to really exercise their power as consumers.
Every decision you make throughout your day can change the world.
I could talk to you guys all day. I don't want to take you away from your important work, but I do have a couple more questions. One, what is going on with whales? Why are we seeing so many washed up on shores in too many places?
I don't think we know for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a combination of factors, everything from food stress, shipping and underwater noise pollution, acoustics underwater. Of course, sound travels so much further underwater than it does, above water. And for animals that see with sound, literally, like cetaceans, whales and dolphins, that's a big problem. I'm sure it's a multitude of factors that continue to impact whales.
But there's one thing that I'll never forget. We were up with amazing scientists, Ken Balcom, up in the Pacific Northwest. We were up with J-Pod. We were looking for Granny. She was the orca that lived 103 years. And we were up there with, looking for her. Yeah. Longest lived whale ever on record. They have photographic evidence of her. She's 103. I think when she finally passed.
What's the normal lifespan of a whale?
Well, we don't know for sure.
She was super old.
0 to 103?
Yes,
And that wasn't in well years like dog years. That was actually
That was
100.
in human years.
That was human
Yeah,
years,
that was in human years. She's a granny. I want to say J3 is her name, her scientific name, but or I'm sorry, it was J or L pod, maybe L pod, L3. But one thing that he told me, which just always stuck with me, was when whales, especially these long-lived whales, when they do, because normally they don't beach. Normally they die or they're sadly struck and they sink. But when they do get up on land, when they're beached and they're dead, they are technically considered hazardous waste because they are so full of toxins, of mercury, heavy metals, PCBs, flame retardants, that they literally would have to send in people in hazmat suits to clean them up. And after I learned that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's so I think they're, the poor whales are just facing a gluttony of issues.
Well, a couple of pictures are in my mind right now. We were recently sailing in the Bahamas, and on one of the islands, there was a whale skeleton on shore next to a museum, and they determined that whale died of plastic poisoning.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
All
And there
over.
was a baby. It was a mama whale and a baby. And the other picture that's in my mind, you probably saw it in the last week. There was a photograph of a whale with a bent tail, like really bent. And they figured it was from being hit by a ship's propeller. I mean, imagine, and yeah, if they could speak, right? If they could speak. So, and the fact that whaling is still going on, I think Japan is still killing whales. Is that correct?
Norway, Japan, Iceland.
2023, it's hard to believe. It really truly is. Well, just want to ask you about one technology that something is showing progress, and that's some of the dust that has minerals and iron in it, sprinkling out over parts of the ocean where I think fish do well with that nutrition, I guess. Do you know or much about that or have an opinion on it?
Well, geoengineering, I think, looking at how we can, and there's different kinds of geoengineering. This is, it's been talked about for a long time. Iron, which is traditionally nutrient poor in the ocean, or not very abundant in the ocean, is an element that particularly phytoplankton rely upon. And so for a long time, there's been talk about putting iron into the surface of the ocean in order to foster phytoplankton growth. Phytoplankton are the main carbon sequestration system in the ocean. As a plant at the surface, they approach, like all plants, they absorb carbon and release oxygen. And there is a lot of discussions around that. I think it's certainly something worth investigating and investing time and money in. But we also equally need to be looking at what's affecting these systems to begin with, and overfishing, and the krill fishery in the Southern Ocean, for example.
Just going to mention.
I don't think we have time to get too much into that, but that's a great example of how we're disrupting these phytoplankton systems. So we need to stop doing some of that stuff and focus on restoring these systems to begin with, and then certainly invest, I think, in this kind of geoengineering technologies to see if they can be helpful and not cause unintended consequences.
I think the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is if they go to their supplements right now, and if you take any omega-3s, they're usually fish oil or krill oil, and it is devastating to the wild fish stocks. And literally it's super gross because if it's fish, they just take the whole fish, they grind it up, guts, eyeballs.
Fish gut oil is gross.
Oh my God, you're saying I can't take my fish oil anymore? I think
Nope,
that's
but
what
don't
keeps my brain running. I
will
thought.
help. Don't worry, we will help. So if it's the fish or the krill, which is also, krill is so important to our ocean, we have to keep them in our ocean. So there is such an easy switch. Fish and krill don't make omega-3s themselves. They get it by eating algae. So there are literally vegan omega-3 pills out there that are made from algae. And if we all switch to that, we would keep so many fish and so many krill in the ocean.
I had no idea. I'm absolutely gonna. And can you get that at Whole Foods?
You can get it at Whole Foods, and we are even launching our own supplement line called Seafoire, because we just wanted people to realize that there's other options out there, and they're actually even better for you because they're more absorbable by our body.
had no
Because
idea.
fish oil usually pee out half of the pill anyways. That's why they're this big.
It's triglyceride, which you buy is very bioavailable.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. We don't run out of
What's
time.
the name of your product? Because I really want to look for it and tell people about it.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's just one thing that a lot of people don't realize, like, look, an example of the stuff that's all around us that we can make changes and start thinking about the products we eat and the supplements and the food and all that kind of stuff to be ocean friendly and ocean positive.
Wow. And where can people see the films that you're going to be promoting on Friday at the Ocean Film Festival in San Francisco, which is why I have this backdrop and happen to be here early for it?
Yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing you there. We're just going to be showing a couple of clips from different projects that we've worked on. We're really there to also help highlight one of the things that we love about the International Ocean Film Festival is their work with young filmmakers. And they know that they'll be featuring a lot of films there from young filmmakers. We're really excited about helping to promote that. We need more and more young filmmakers in this space.
And
And
again,
then how can our viewers find these films so they can watch them?
Oh, I think everybody can go to the International Film Festival website, and also on their social media, they're highlighting clips all week, all month actually, from the winners, from the submittees and the winners. And there are some incredible films. There's some sad films, there's some happy films, there's exciting films. And again, that's really what this ocean needs. It needs everyone's voice to come out for it, and just really show how important and how beautiful our ocean is.
And speaking of the future, you have 2 young children. How old are they now?
Yes, we have 2 little girls, 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
Oh my.
Bless it. The greatest thing.
So what is your hope for them vis-a-vis our oceans and our ecosystems and our biosphere?
My father and grandfather talked often about a pretty simple vision that they had, that I share, that Ashton shares, that is a driving force at Earth Echo. And that is that every single child born on Earth has the simple right to walk on healthy soil, to breathe clean air, to drink fresh, clean water under a blue sky. And all we want is a world where every single child, not only our own, has that ability as they grow up. So that's the world we fight for.
Thank you so much. I found this very inspiring. I'm so glad you're out there. And Cousteau is, world renowned, the name. And so I hope that gets you a lot of clout and a lot of supporters, a lot of people listening to both of you. You're really quite amazing. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you have done.
Your leadership has been extraordinary. And we look forward to seeing you here on Friday at the festival.
And I just want to invite our viewers, and you too, please go to greentv.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to get up to 1,000 subscribers, which may not sound like much, but we are a startup and we don't have a promotion or marketing department. It's just word of mouth, organic word of mouth, spreading virally, we hope. And then once we can start live streaming, oh my gosh, could be doing this all day as far as I'm concerned. There's no shortage of solutionaries out there. So thanks for being one of my favorite solutionaries, and together, wow, double the impact. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Betsy.